My name is Caroline Casey. I'm the founder of the Valuable 500, and I am delighted to be joined by Andrew Liveris. Our chair, Paul Poman, wasn't able to be with us today, and I said, Paul, who would be the best person to sit in the seat opposite? And it is you. So I am so delighted to have you, Andrew. Thank you. A legend in his own time. The reason really I think we're both here is I really believe in YPO being able to amplify the message that we have so unbelievably and successfully launched in Davos. And I really appeal to all of you as leaders, because the work we do is that we know in the shadow and the light of leaders, when you have the attention and intention of leaders, real change can happen. The Valuable 500 believe that business is the most powerful force on the planet, and therefore its leaders are the most powerful force. So what is the Valuable 500 and why are we here? Well, there is an inclusion delusion in the world, okay? There are 90% of our companies and brands claim that they are passionate about inclusion, yet 4% consider disability. Now, for me, that is a delusion. You cannot say that you are fully inclusive if you only 4% include disability. I'm going to give you some stats around that. There are 1.3 billion people in the world have a lived experience of disability. 80% is acquired between the ages of 18 and 64. Which is workforce age. 80% is invisible. 90% of children with a disability don't get an education. Now, these are huge stats, and disability is going to touch every single human being at some point in its life, okay? And there is a compelling business case for disability in business. Let me give you some stats. $1 trillion market offering. With disability, it represents 54% of our global consumer base. It is an offering for talent attraction. And that's not just disabled talent, it is an offer for growth and innovation. And I just don't understand why business has not seen it. And what we believe in the Valuable 500, it's because we have these competing agendas around D&I. We're segregating humanity, and we're competing gender against LGBTQ and against race. And like, that seems so bizarre to me when we're talking about inclusion. But in that fight, disability has been on the edge. So the Valuable 500 exists to end that, and we believe the most powerful way that we can do that is leadership. Next bit of statistics, 56% of our boards have never had a conversation about disability. Wow. Huge. So this is why we need leadership. And the second big statistic is 7% of our C-suite have a lived experience of disability, but 4 out of 5 of them are hiding it. Which just wraps me into my last point before I come to you. Why do I care? Why am I this firecracker that just will not go away, this Irish mad woman? Because 20 years ago, I came out of the closet. I came out of the closet in Accenture. I'm an ex-management consultant for my sins. Even Accenture didn't know I was blind, which I am. I am registered legally blind. In my bag is a cane. I can't see Andrew, so I say you look like George Clooney for me today. And my husband is always delighted to be as young as forever and ever. But the reason I didn't talk about it was fear of belonging and not getting a chance, and for my ability and potential to be reached. And I think the reason that I do the Valuable 500 is I would like to see the statistics change. We need to see who we need to see in business. So I need to see leaders who would want me as a consumer and as talent. But most importantly, the trigger points for change right now are the next generation, the digital revolution, and social media giving voice. How can I do this? Please explain and tell me the barriers, the opportunities. Over to you, because you're the boss.
Oh, no, look, honestly, I got goosebumps as you were talking. So one of the ways we can do it is what you're doing right here. And I think the 15 years I had as a chairman and CEO was a privilege. I come from immigrant background. I have humility as my stride. Paul is one of my passionate peers, and you learn on the job about lots of things that are barriers and unconscious biases. Conscious bias was last century's issue. Unconscious bias is this century's issue, and I think if you had to say, answer and get more companies, you are on a roll, but we've got to help you. YPO's got to help you, and that's why we're here. This topic of ignoring disability in the inclusion statement is one near and dear to my heart. I'll give you the primacy of the point that I made to my entire organization, because what we've done as humanity and as enterprises, as we've arrived at these tipping points, and you mentioned digitalization as one of them, which is amazing unleashing of new technology for humanity. I have been here at Davos all week talking about the whole statement around sustainability and ESG and climate change as another of the major tipping points in humanity, like the bushfires in my home country, as a visible example of how humanity, as we go to 9 billion people, if we don't understand that the resource that we have to leverage and use is the only resource left to us as humanity, to be people, and unleashing the talents of all people equally. If we don't get that point by now, we are failures, because it isn't the natural resources that God gave us on this planet anymore. It isn't financial resources. For goodness sakes, we've abused financial resources, and we've got to fix those systems. It isn't governance and the institutions of the 20th century that are going to help us anymore. Those institutions are laggards, and in fact, governments are failing. We have almost a divorce going on between democracy and capitalism. So who's going to fill that vacuum? Who? It has to be leaders, and leaders of enterprises of all types, for sure the for-profit enterprises, because the license to operate that we all get, whether you're Unilever or whether you're Dow, the license you get isn't from a regulator. No. It's from humanity. It's from people. That's our license to be here. And if we don't include all of us, if we don't reflect all of us in our markets, in our talent search, in our workforce, if we don't do that, we will fail in our quest to build out these amazing opportunities of the 21st century. I'm an optimist. I guess that's what happens when you become a CEO.
You have like to be revolutionary as well.
Maybe evolution, revolution get mixed up in vernacular. I think the English language sometimes fails us in describing where we are. It's an emotion. And in fact, you asked the question you did, and I'll wrap up with this comment, especially to the YPO, and that is the tone of a leader of any enterprise, which is what I tried to do, okay, was actually visibly be out there on the podium, in the workplace, on the factory floor, explaining. And on the disability topic, we made it one of our priorities at Dow. We had lapsed into this notion that other enterprises did, which is to do this well, let's form these employee groups. And we created these verticals. So African American networks and, disability networks and other networks, Asian, etc. These networks were important and powerful. They gave employees a voice. But the whole point was that's actually disinclusion. In fact, if we didn't leverage across and actually put the common denominator, in fact, what I like to call as a scientist, the numerator at work. Denominators subtract and divide. Numerators add and amplify and multiply. The numerator here was the common issue across all those employee groups was the inclusion of the silent majority. The people who had unconscious bias become conscious bias. The people who we call them racists in societies, right? The people who actually said, when they look at a force of nature like you're not good enough. And that is wrong. And actually, how do we unleash that is through the leader at the top. So your recruitment of CEOs, I'm on board with you, and frankly, I laud what you've done, and I don't know whether you need much help.
Oh, I need a lot of help. I do, but can I just say something? There's two things that occurred to me listening to you, and this is the first time we've met. I think I actually have a crush on you, so I'm going to own that.
Well, it's George Clooney,
No, I'll tell you why, because you're speaking, first of all, you're holding eye contact with me, though I can't see your face, but actually you're speaking from your head and from your heart.
Yes.
And people keep saying, do we need to make the business case? The business case. Can I ask you, am I just naive to say, I think we need both? Yeah. I think we need data, and I think we need story. I think we need head and we need heart. Am I just being just this idealist activist, or does that land with you, and does that land with all leaders, or is it just people that represent like you?
Well, look, this is the second time you've given me goosebumps. I don't know how many more times you want to do this, because you've really said something which is very, very critical to me as a human being. I say this in every audience I can. You give me an opportunity to say it again here, which is leading. I can buy people with my wallet. I can even stimulate them with my brain. I think most people are intelligent in some way, shape, or form. We just have to stimulate their IQ. But what you just hit upon, okay, was the heart, the EQ. And you know what? When we get the robot thing happen to us, whatever form you think that's going to take, you know, all the way to, you know, robots running the place, which, you know, I'm not particularly a believer on, but there's some people here that believe in that. This EQ, heart, passion, tone, lead from the front, but follow fast, is what the integrated organization now demands. See, Dow actually was one of the inventors of the matrix organization, which was actually, you know, run as a matrix. Then it became the hub and spoke organization. Organizations today, especially with connectivity and modern technology, are integrated, which means that there is nowhere to hide and everything's on display. And if you don't get your narrative, not just your content, not just the SME part of this topic, but the narrative. The narrative is what actually humans love. We're storytellers. You know, we're in love with each other's stories. And, you know, this story of inclusion of people who have disabilities, and as you say, your stats are powerful. In my ecosystem, okay, my family, okay, I have people who notionally have disability. I don't even like that word. We need to find another way of saying it. But I get your point. This is EQ. This is inclusion of the fullest kind. And if we don't unleash all of our talent, humanity is not going to solve the intractable problems of this century.